Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at Kinfire Delve, the 1 to 2 player or eventually 1 to 4 player solo co-op card-based dungeon delving game. And disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of this. I often enjoy these quick dungeon delve games, things like Unbroken and 20 Strong. How does Kinfire Delve measure up? Let's find out and get to the list. So my number 5 point is a mix for my taste, and that's the final boss you get into at the end of each game against Vainglory in the main set. And how it works is you have one version of the card, and then you have to face against her bodyguards, and as you defeat them, they will unlock certain colors you can fight her with. Like only when you've defeated her red guy can you actually fight her with red. And on the positive side, this is consistently tense. No game has felt like a foregone conclusion. The battles are challenging and exciting. But on the negative side, at least in my opinion, this is one of the swingiest parts of the game. The different Vainglories that you might possibly face, I do not think are balanced against each other, and also you have a 50-50 chance each time you fight them on triggering their negative ability, which doesn't matter too much for some, but is completely crippling for others if you have bad luck. And also the gauntlet cards, the bodyguards, are the same every game, so not quite as much variety as I like in other parts of the design. But like I said, it's still tense and fun. For my number 4 point, I'm looking at the randomness in the game, and this is also a mix for my taste. So first, on every single challenge, you roll the dice, and they might help or hurt you based on how you roll. This part actually is pretty much a full pro for me because it's very mitigatable, it's very predictable, you have ways to reroll with powers and such. Where the randomness could be more of a negative for people is in the card draw. I already told you that Vainglory has different levels and some of those are tougher or easier. The exhaustion cards you get when you need to redraw, some don't bother you at all. One of them is horrifically negative and can end the game for you if you don't have a way to address it. And then some of the well cards themselves, which you're delving down to get to the boss, can be drastically easier or harder based on what you pull. So it can give the game variety, but it also can be frustrating in its swinginess depending on your taste. Moving on to my number 3, the character variety. This is pretty much a pro for my taste. You have 2 characters in this first set, and in the upcoming set you'll have 2 more each. And they have their own unique deck of cards, and they have a really cool theme. They have an ongoing ability that's very powerful. The cards have a ton of powers, and it's really interesting to try to leverage them in the best possible way against the well deck. They have the fun super action card, the Lantern, that was also in Kinfire Chronicles. And really the only complaint I have here is you only get 2 characters in each set, but it's an inexpensive box to buy into, so I don't really mind that. And I got to play the next 2 characters at PAX Unplugged and thought they seemed awesome and also very different from the existing characters. So I'm just super excited by the variety in the game in general. And speaking of variety, the well cards I mentioned earlier, while yes, having some swinginess, are also an awesome element of the game. So the players will usually have 4 cards to choose from, and they'll address or confront one of them at a time. But you have crazy things like events that can heal you at some cost. Things that are better if you leave them sitting around until more copies come out and they become more challenging, but the reward is increased. You have cards that are crapshoots where you can get a huge reward, but it's a 50-50 chance of failing. But then the cool thing is your cards interact with all these in really interesting ways. And because most of the time when you beat a card, it causes you to discard cards off the top of the deck as you delve deeper and deeper, you only see a small, tiny subsection of all the cards in the game each time you play. So I'm still playing the game, and just the other day I saw a card that I feel like I had never drawn before, which is just super cool that even after playing the same basic game over and over with just one set, I still feel like there's new stuff to discover. And that brings me to my number 1, which for my taste is also a pro, and that's the card management and cooperative card play in the game. So based on your player count, you'll start with a certain number of cards in your hand, and you don't redraw. As your cards run out and your options get limited, you're trying to match them to the colors because they can only go against certain types of challenges. And if you want to redraw, you have to take one of these random exhaustion cards, which is going to negatively affect you and all the other players, but it lets you build your hand back up and suddenly you're back in the game. But some of these are really tough and you need to find certain enemies or certain player cards that can let you get rid of them. So that whole card management is really cool, but then they have the idea of boosting, which was also in Kinfire Chronicles. So one player will play the main card against a challenge, like Blinding Flash could be used on a green one, but other players can use any card that matches with a white color or the same green color, up to 2 of them. and that conversation in cooperative play over which cards they want to use. But, do they want to use them? Because, like I already said, your cards are a very limited resource, and if you use them to help somebody else out, you're going to be that much closer to exhausting yourself to draw more. It's a really interesting choice, and even in solo where you're just boosting yourself, it's still pretty cool to figure out, when do I want to use cards for their full power, for their full value, or when do I really need to beat this challenge now and I just want to boost this thing as much as possible. So overall, you might want to look into Kinfire Delve if you like solo or co-op games that are quick to play, that have a lot of variety in the characters, that have interesting card play choices, and that have some randomness and luck, but you might want to be cautious of this one if that kind of swinginess bothers you. And also, this might not be the game for you if you want a ton of character variety and options out of the gate. It's a very low price point, but you only get 2 characters at the start, only 1 main type of boss at the start. You're going to have to wait more and buy more to get the rest. And if you want to see the game in action, I recorded a full playthrough on the channel earlier. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.